Good afternoon. You're listening to the news in detail on Gold FM. I'm Avnindra Soma for Gold FM News.
The news headlines on Gold FM.
Sri Lanka observes traditional oil anointing ritual. Tougher fines for traffic violations during New Year. No extension likely for water cuts in Colombo. Fuel price hike looms as IMF pressures government over subsidies. Sri Lanka repatriates 240 Iranian sailors. War close to over. Trump eyes renewed talks. US to refund $166 billion in illegal tariffs. China will not get Iranian oil, insists Besnet.
The top story on Gold FM.
In a backdrop where US officials have reported that the naval blockade of Iranian ports is fully in effect, halting virtually all Iranian maritime trade through the Strait of Hormuz, President Donald Trump described the measure as necessary pressure on Tehran, saying the war is very close to over and hinting that a new round of direct US-Iran talks could resume within the next day or two, possibly hosted again by Pakistan. Vice President J.D. Vance has accused Iran of economic terrorism for its earlier disruptions of the vital shipping lane, which has driven up global oil prices. On the diplomatic front, Israeli and Lebanese envoys held rare direct talks in Washington yesterday, the first in decades aimed at securing a ceasefire and the disarmament of Hezbollah. Progress remains unclear, but both sides have agreed to continue negotiations. Israel is pressing for the removal of Hezbollah's military capabilities from southern Lebanon, while Beirut is seeking an end to Israeli operations. Now, despite the talks, violence on the ground in southern Lebanon has persisted. Israeli forces carried out airstrikes and ground operations, including the reported bulldozing of buildings in several towns. Hezbollah, in the meantime, announced new attacks on Israeli positions along the border, claiming to have engaged troops with rockets and anti-tank weapons. Lebanese health officials say more than 2,100 people have now been killed in the latest round of fighting, with over 1 million displaced. An Israeli reservist was reported killed and several others were wounded in recent clashes. Now, meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance has defended the administration's military posture against criticism from the Vatican. Addressing a conference in Georgia, the Vice President challenged Pope Leo's recent assertions regarding the morality of war, questioning whether the pontiff would similarly condemn the liberation of France or the Holocaust camps during the Second World War.
So I think some people, their reaction to this is to say, well, he shouldn't have said that. And look, there are certainly things that the Pope has said in the last few months that I disagree with. Let me just take one very concrete example related to this conflict in Iran. So the Pope said something where he said, and I'm gonna try to remember the exact quote, but he said that God is never on the side of those who wield the sword. God is never on the side of those who wield the sword. I'm pretty sure that he said that exact statement. Now, on the one hand, again, I like that the Pope is an advocate for peace. I think that's certainly one of his roles. On the other hand, how can you say that God is never on the side of those who wield the sword? Was God on the side of the Americans who liberated France from the Nazis? Was God on the side of the Americans who liberated Holocaust camps and liberated those innocent people from, those who had survived the Holocaust? I certainly think the answer is yes. And I agree. Jesus Christ certainly does not support genocide. I think it's very, very important for the Pope to be careful when he talks about matters of theology. And I think one of the issues here is that if you're going to opine on matters of theology, you've got to be careful. You've got to make sure it's anchored in the truth. And that's one of the things that I try to do. And it's certainly something I would expect from the clergy, whether they're Catholic or Protestant. Now,
While expressing the admiration for the Pope as an advocate for peace, the Vice President insisted that the administration remains focused on a grand bargain that ensures Iran never acquires a nuclear weapon while allowing the Iranian people eventually to rejoin the world economy.
The United States had never had meetings at that level with the Iranian government in 49 years. Like it's a meeting that had never before happened. Not Democrat, not Republican. We had never had a meeting like that where you have, the person who's effectively running the country in Iran sitting across from the Vice President of the United States. That had never happened. Look, honestly, after 49 years, there's a lot of course, mistrust between Iran and the United States of America. You're not going to solve that problem overnight. But yeah, I think the people we're sitting across from wanted to make a deal, and I know the President of the United States told us to go out there and negotiate in good faith. That's what we did. That's what we're going to keep on doing. So you never know, though. But here's where we are on, fundamentally, the president set a policy. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and right now we are negotiating to make sure that very thing happens. What's interesting about this is that we have this ceasefire that's in place. I think it's 6 or 7 days old. Right now, this ceasefire is holding. And what you're seeing is what the president wants to make, he doesn't want to make like a small deal. He wants to make the grand bargain. But the reason why the deal is not yet done is because the president, he really wants a deal where Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon, Iran is not state sponsoring terrorism, but also the people of Iran can thrive and prosper and join the world economy.
This is the local news on Gold FM.
Steps were taken yesterday to repatriate more than 240 Iranian naval personnel who are under the care of Sri Lanka back to Iran. The group consisted of 38 sailors rescued from IRIS Dana and 204 sailors from the IRIS Bushehr. These individuals were previously held at detention centres in Valisara and Koggala. The naval group departed the island from the Bandar Naik International Airport in Katunayaka via special Iranian aircraft. This move followed the earlier repatriation of the bodies of 84 Iranian sailors who died when the IRIS Dana was struck by American torpedoes in international waters off Galle on the 4th of March. The historic Kalaniya Raja Mahavihara served as the venue for the traditional New Year oil anointing ceremony today, held under the patronage of Chief Incumbent Professor Venerable Kollupitiya Mahinda Sangharatthira. Organised as a part of the Surya Singhale Hiru Auruddu Sirita, the event aimed to preserve and pass down cultural values to the younger generation. The ceremony took place during the auspicious time of 6:55 am, drawing a large crowd of devotees to the sacred grounds. The initiative, a concept of Hiru Media Network chairman Reno Silva, highlighted the cultural significance of the anointing ritual as the entire nation joined in the traditions. Professor Venerable Kollupitiya Mahinda Sangharatthira provided spiritual guidance and delivered an oration during the proceedings. There could be a possible fuel price hike in the near future, meaning the government will never get an opportunity to supply the essentials at the price they promised during the elections. Following these developments in the future, the government will have to explain to the people why they lied on the election stage. These views were expressed by a parliamentarian of the Samajana Malavega, economist Dr. Harsha De Silva. The IMF wants the government to ensure restoration of cost recovery electricity and fuel pricing so that the 5th and 6th reviews could be approved, allowing access to about $700 million of funding. Following the recent fuel price revision, the government is providing up to 100 rupees per litre for diesel and up to 20 rupees per litre for petrol as a subsidy. Does this mean that the government might have to cancel this subsidy and pass it on to the consumers in the next fuel price revision to obtain approval? We asked Dr. Harsha about the possibility.
Looks like it, and that the fuel price subsidy, the gender subsidy, will have to be taken out. You see, they kept lying to the people. So they'll have to face the truth and face the music, because we never lied to the people. We said there was a fuel price formula. We said that we will provide targeted subsidies. We said all that. And these are the people who said, no, it is nothing like that. They will sell fuel at a much cheaper price. That's all what they said that. We didn't say that. They'll have to square with the people and say, we lied to you. And let them deal with that. It is not our problem. They are the people who lied. We are the people who told the truth. They voted for the people who lied. So why the hell should we try to bail them out? out now. It is their way.
When quizzed about a possible electricity tariff hike, this is what Dr. De Silva had to say.
Even if they use NAFTA, the additional cost to TB's generation is going to be 33 billion rupees, right? And that has to be recovered from the people immediately. So, which means of the 33 billion, 19 billion is because of the coal scam. So that coal scam, 19 billion has to be recouped from the people. So they are asking for anywhere between 25 to 30% increase in electricity. They are asking for about 25% increase in electricity, assuming they use NAFTA.
He said that the government will have to deceive people further to cover up their incompetency.
Now they'll have to lie some more to cover this lie. I mean, this is a regime of bunch of liars, no? But that is the truth. You can't live this lie. It's not possible. So let them be honest. Say that we lied. We can't do any of this.
Now for some news in brief.
The National Water Supply and Drainage Board stated pre-New Year water cuts in parts of Colombo will not be extended, but warns ongoing dry weather and rising demand could prompt changes with prior notice to the public.
The business news on Gold FM.
Brent crude reached $95 and 64 cents per barrel following a 0.90% increase in recent trading. West Texas Intermediate followed the upward trend, climbing to $91 and 61 cents as market analysts monitor shifting production levels.
International news on Gold FM.
The United States government will begin issuing $166 billion in refunds to American importers starting next Monday, after the Supreme Court declared specific global tariffs unlawful. U.S. Customs and Border Protection confirmed the rollout of the CAPE electronic payment system, which merges multiple claims into single transactions to streamline the return of funds. Court documents reveal over 56,000 importers already qualified for $127 billion in repayments as of early April. The judicial ruling found President Donald Trump exceeded his authority by using the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose the levies. While the new system aims to handle 53 million shipments, officials warn that nearly $3 billion in complex claims might still require manual processing. The International Monetary Fund's Global Economic Outlook warned that the global activity faces a major test as war in the Middle East creates a new wave of uncertainty. Assuming the conflict remains limited, the IMF projects global growth will slow to 3.1% in 2026, with emerging markets expected to suffer the most significant impact on inflation and stability. The report cautions that a broader or longer conflict coupled with high public debt and geopolitical fragmentation could destabilize financial markets and lead to long-term economic scarring. While rapid advancements in artificial intelligence offer a potential boost to productivity, the IMF stresses that rising defense spending risks crowding out social programs and igniting social unrest.
Entertainment news on Gold FM.
Kate Blanchett is set to portray lifestyle media mogul Martha Stewart in the upcoming biopic Good Thing, directed by Solar. Filmmaker Janisa Bravo, with the title referencing Stewart's iconic catchphrase, "It's a good thing."
Sports news on Gold FM.
Chennai Super Kings defeated Kolkata Knight Riders by 32 runs at the Chepauk to secure 2 consecutive wins for the first time in 2 years. Sanju Samson and Ayush Matre led the scoring to reach 192 before spinner Noor Ahmed dismantled the Kolkata's middle order with figures of 3 for 21. Despite a return for Varun Chakravarti, Kolkata Knight Riders failed to chase the target, leaving the team winless this season and facing early elimination. KKR captain Ajinkya Rahane also received a fine of nearly $12,800 for a slow over rate during the match. That's it for now. Stay tuned to Gold FM for the latest updates. This is Avinindra Soma for Gold FM News. Have a great day.